Well, hello, and thanks for taking the time to do this quick video about the upcoming changes for annual forage for the 2024 crop year. These changes won't go into effect until July 15th, but I just definitely want to get some information out to you ahead of time so we can start planning, and we won't have a fire drill toward the end of the sales closing deadline. This video will primarily use charts and graphs from Colorado, but I've got the same information available for any any county where annual forage is available. So here's a quick snip from the Risk Management Agency sent out on April 28th with a summary of the annual forage changes. And so we're going to go through each one of these point by point here and just talk about how that's going to impact you going forward. Keep in mind, this video is really only intended to talk about annual forage changes for 2024. We've got lots of other resources about how the program might work for you. If you're new to if you're new to annual forage, it might be a good fit for your operation. So please reach out to me if you have questions on that, or we've got a lot of resources available on our website under the annual forage page. So the biggest change in annual forage for 2024 is moving from 4 growing seasons to 12. And so what I've done here on this graph, I've highlighted on this chart in red the different growing seasons. And so it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, every growing season aligns with a month, and the growing seasons start out with August. So August is growing season 1. Any plantings that land from 8/1 to 8/31 is going to be insurable in growing season 1. Now, for 2024 crop year only, we have a little get well period. It's actually any plantings from the middle of July through the end of August is going to land in growing season 1. And then when we get to 2025 crop year, that'll just be from the beginning of the month to the end of the month. Growing season 2 is the September time frame, and then October would be growing season 3, and so on. So the next one nice thing about this is that you can see here in the fall growing seasons, September and October, for example, we're opening up the March, April, and April-May index intervals, and those previously weren't available in growing season 1 in the old in the 2023 crop year for annual forage. This is handy because it's going to allow you to when we get that fall crop in the ground, a lot of times, you're not going to know until the springtime if you get some moisture, if that's going to be a decent crop to come up and harvest. And so now with these changes, they're allowing us to buy some precipitation basically and get some coverage there in the following spring. So I think that's a really good change, and that'll be a benefit to you as a producer. Another change with the growing seasons is moving the acreage reporting deadline to 5 days after the month ends. So for example, in growing season 2, September, our acreage reporting deadline is going to be October 5th. Now, this is a big change from the 45-day window we had before down to 5 days. But one important point about this, and I'll come to this in a little bit, is that for 2024, there's no requirement to insure 100% of your annual forage acres. Because this acreage reporting deadline is sooner now, basically it means we're going to need to be communicating during the planting season, not just after. We want to make sure we have plenty of time to get an idea of where things are going on your farms and get the plant dates. We're also not going to be able to wait until your FSA reporting. So if you have some some September growing season 2 plantings, typically those aren't reported to FSA until 30-45 days later. Well, we're not going to be able to wait that long. We are going to need to file your annual forage acreage report according to these new parameters. And so one thing we're going to do is really rely heavily on map-based acreage reports. I think that will really reduce the confusion on what plantings are going in and the different dates. One advantage for you in that is that you'll be able to take that map-based acreage report to the FSA office and it'll have your CLUs and the different plantings that you have. It will already be kind of pre-done for you to hand over to them. So I think that'll be definitely a good change. As I said earlier, going forward in 2024, there's no requirement to ensure 100% of your annual forage plantings. And so the one advantage there is, if you get into a season, you feel like you might not need rainfall coverage on your feed crops, no problem. Well, let's just put 0 acres down, or even a portion, a percent of the acres, something less than 100% on that annual forage planting. And you can move forward. You won't have the liability or the premium on your policy for that acre or that farm that you don't want annual forage coverage on. So three pretty big changes right there, but I think they all kind of fall into place, and I think it's going to be a good thing going forward. There's this note in the changes about how they incorporated the FAD 301 into the rainfall index basic provisions. So even though that's a short phrase, it packs a lot of meaning. There's a lot of information behind that, and I'll just do my best to summarize it. What that means, well, quite simply, FAD stands for Final Agency Determination. Agency is the RMA, the Risk Management Agency in this case, and the number 301 is simply the sequence of determination that came out. And so basically, in years past, there was a question from an approved insurance provider if a certain practice was considered the first crop, second crop, or double crop. Now, one huge advantage in annual forage, and many of you have taken advantage of this, is the double cropping abilities with annual forage. In other words, for the same piece of ground in one crop year, you can plant and insure and receive benefit from or loss 2 different growing seasons on that farm. And so there was some questions by some AIPs if a certain practice fell into the first crop, second crop rules, which, as you might know, basically limits the amount of coverage or insurance loss available to on 135%. All that really happened here was that the RMA incorporated this decision they made in the past into the basic provisions. So they made it clear for everybody how to interpret double crop versus first crop, second crop. So it's impossible to discuss all the different scenarios that could come up in these double cropping scenarios. Let's just continue to stay in touch if that occurs, and we'll give you the right information so you can make your plan going forward, and you won't be surprised. So the crop provisions say that the same acreage can't be planted and insured in another growing season with the same intervals. And so what that means, graphically here, is that we've got acres planted in growing season 1, and we've got intervals September, October through February, March. Well, on that same piece of ground, the very next time we can come back and plant a forage crop and have annual forage coverage won't be until February, growing season 7, because we don't share. Growing season 7 is the first growing season that doesn't share the exact same index intervals as growing season 1. And so to make this even a little bit easier to understand, RMA has provided this handy chart that says, okay, let's pretend you have coverage in growing season 1 through 12. What's the very next growing season you can be eligible to have a second annual forage planting and get that double crop benefit? And so this is where that chart is. And like I said, it's important to have good communication and stay in touch to make sure we don't get into a surprise situation. So with these growing season changes, there were changes that had to be changes made to the dual use option, and the dual use option and annual forage still works essentially the same way. The only difference going forward in 2024 is that now dual use is available in growing season 1, that's August, growing season 2, September, and growing season 3, October. Previously, it was only available in growing season 1, but now since we're going to 12 growing seasons by month, they're allowing dual use in growing season 1, 2, and 3, August, September, October. This chart shows, or this map shows the states, or I'm sorry, the counties in Colorado where dual use is available, represented in the green, and that hasn't changed. Dual use still isn't available in those counties that are listed as blue. And we've got this same chart for the other counties where annual forage is available. Another quick note on this is that here in Colorado, they're not allowing a producer to use and insure acres in growing season 5 and 6. So that's December and January. And that makes sense if you think about it. There's typically no planting that goes on during that time. So they just simply took that out to provide clarity. That's the main points to discuss there on this county map. Here we have a base value map for Colorado, and you can see in the different county regions where we've listed the new updated county base value in red, and that's actually gone up about 19.5% across the board in every Colorado county. We can share this same map for other states as well. So that wraps it up. We've gone through each one of the different changes according to the RMA announcement. The sales closing deadline is still July 15th. That hasn't changed. So by July 15th, we're going to need to decide on coverage level and productivity factor. I don't see that changing for you. However, we will need to make some changes on your interval allocations for each growing season. I'm going to have some information to you ahead of time with a recommendation about what a place to start, what I'd recommend on how to split up your interval coverage per growing season based off of some of our historical data, and we'll hopefully make that decision easier. Premium billing date is still August 30th of the next year, so that hasn't changed. And so, man, just really appreciate you taking the time to review this quick video. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. You'll be getting some email information from me soon about next steps on this, and we're going to have to stay in touch here. July 15th is right around the corner, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.